it just happened actually. I was doing Eastern Town Center this year, and we had I had developed these large, beautiful ornaments made out of aluminum. They have been made in the north, in Portland, in Oregon, and I have been working with this vendor for 20 years, and they were unique. They had to be cut through aluminum and painted, and all of a sudden my deadline was October 1st for an installation November 14th. So October 1st came, the ornaments were not delivered, but I was saying, no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And then like I was supposed to be installing on November 5th, on November 1st, the ornaments were still not out of Portland. So it's realizing, so I had to it's realizing what is it that, how do you deal with a client in a situation when you know there's going to be a problem? Because these installations have like 80-foot cranes that are going up, and they are a lot of money in cost. So working with that vendor day and night to make sure, contracting a truck that didn't sleep to pick up those ornaments and deliver them, and then going and telling the client the truth. I mean, this is what's happened. Never had happened. This is happening. So how do we deal? I had to change the way the ornaments were installed to actually do them. So it was very challenging, but it came out well. And many of them, we have in the work that we do with media, there's a lot of challenges, and it's being upfront. I think the biggest issue is understanding what can go wrong and prevent from going wrong. That's one of the biggest challenges that you have in design, because if the foundation is not done right, nothing is going to go well. So for us is that I'm being upfront with the client and saying, this is our problem, how do we deal with it?
Great.
I do agree that I think most of the things that we get involved with are challenging. It's very rare that we don't, for whatever reason, get involved in challenging projects. I think we actually select challenging projects. So destination projects, and we tend to enjoy challenges. But I do agree that with any kind of challenge, it's often stepping outside the normal rules of engagement and maybe your own role to and using whatever ingenuity and tools you can use to address the challenge. So the one that comes to my mind is when I was really young, I got involved in a project where I was clearly over my head. It was a Philadelphia 2000 project called Philadelphia Past, Present, Future, but it was really about Philadelphia's future. And I was hired after the first choice turned down the job, and so I came into the job knowing that I was not fully qualified. But the role was it was Philadelphia in the late 1970s, early 1980s, facing many of the challenges of an industrial city that had lost its economic role. And my role as the assistant project director was to work with 20 different committees, significant people in Philadelphia. I was in a servant role, really, but then I certainly inherited a job to put what was going on together in such a way that could be implemented. So I ended up looking at different tools and going outside design and planning to develop what was called ended up being called the Philadelphia Investment Portfolio, where different initiatives that were needed in Philadelphia and required some level of funding support were broken up into piecemeal elements that different participants could adopt. No idea if that was going to work, but somehow it sort of did. At least it appeared it was working. And the real challenge was that the payoff was going to be 15, 20 years down the road. And many things happened. But that project, not my role so much, but the role of a lot of people, that project was a catalyst, and the Philadelphia investment portfolio became the tool that people used to initiate 15 or 20 projects that, so there was a challenge, there was a success, there was no guarantees, and it required inventing something that, I wasn't trained to invent, and nobody was, I was working with was trained to craft, that we crafted based on the situation. I think that's what we do all the time now, but you learn over time to address challenges that way. Ours is a world that isn't easily navigated.
When you contract with Universal, they have an opening.
It's Universal Studios
Orlando. That's a big job. And it was a 50-foot tree. And the tree, my secretary had sent the tree by train. I sent it like a month before. It needed to be there. So it takes a while to get there. And Katrina hit. When Katrina hit, all the South was kind of under trouble. And that train, Mike was friends with Ross Perot. And he actually personally called them. And that train was moved along through all the railways. And I was 1 day late.
I mean, this is where,
it was just...
This probably combines a question about serendipity and challenges. Because I happen to be working, Ross Perot was friendly, but he was really my client, So he wasn't my friend, per se, but a wonderful guy, Ross Perot Jr. And we're working on a project called the Circle T Ranch that he owned that was right next to another project that he developed called Alliance, Texas, where you had the Burlington Northern and Union Pacific rail lines and an airport he built, big transmodal hub. So when this happened, I had done a variety of things that put me in the favor bank with him, and I called him to ask for a favor and said, is there anything you can do about calling Union Pacific to somehow get this tree off the train and over to Universal Studios?
I even thought about a helicopter pulling the trailer out.
And he said, well, I'll have my logistics guys deal with it. And in the end, he had to call the CEO of the Burlington line to get the tree, removed.
They moved
in the end, they moved the whole train.